Ever catch yourself, kind of daydreaming about a life less ordinary? Like, what if I had a bunch of rental properties, maybe a bar even? Oh, and also, I sail the Pacific. Today we're diving into a story that's, well, it's about way more than just owning stuff. It's about really crafting the life you want, one step at a time.
I'm with you.
We're going deep with Paul.
Okay.
He's a real estate investor who took the scenic route, let's say.
Yeah, Paul's story is awesome. It shows how real estate can be like that launch pad, to really chase what you love and build a life that's actually, designed by you.
Right.
We always talk about financial freedom, but his journey is like a billboard for time freedom, too.
He really just wanted to live for free.
Right.
No big plans for like a real estate empire or anything.
It's funny how that simple idea, right? Living for free. It's like catnip for new investors.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of, I don't know, control. Like you want to break free from housing costs ruling your life. But get this, Paul's path, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. He got rejected by like 12 realtors before finding one who got it.
Wow. Talk about a test, right? Sound like the partners you choose in real estate, they're as important as the properties themselves.
100%. You need people who not only get what you're going for, but are also down to, take some calculated risks with you.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, right? Challenging the norm, thinking
Yeah.
differently. It pops up a lot in Paul's story, wouldn't you say?
Totally. Speaking of doing things differently, who would have thought a chat on a beach would totally change how he sees success?
Right. That story about the guy loaded huge boat, but would trade it all for another shot with his family. It's like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Money doesn't buy happiness.
Makes you think, what is success, really? It's easy to get laser focused on the money, but what about experiences, real connections?
It's about figuring out what matters to you and then building a life that shows it. And Paul and his wife, they went all in, sold half their properties to sell the Pacific with their kids for 3 years.
Talk about like extreme portfolio management, right? Imagine the lessons, not just from the ocean, but like living on a sailboat as a family.
Living on a boat,
Yeah.
got to be adaptable, resourceful, and like really good at finding the good, especially when, literal storms hit. Those are some handy skills no matter what you do.
Big time. It's like those apply to any business, any tough thing life throws at you. Being flexible, being a problem solver, and just bouncing back. Those are key.
Exactly. And just like those, salty sailors who've seen it all, Paul's not scared of hard work. He's all about managing his own stuff, empowering his team.
Interesting. He could pay someone to do it all, but he likes getting his hands dirty, knowing every little thing about his business.
That hands-on style, it gives him a real edge. He's not just staring at numbers. He's connecting with the people living in his properties, figuring out what they need, even building a sense of community there.
And that, like, personal touch, it seems to build a lot of trust with his tenants. He talked about people almost leaving for those, like, shiny new buildings, but they stuck around because, I don't know, they valued that connection.
Shows you something about how he operates, right? It's not just gimme rent. He's trying to build a community. And for anyone listening who's like taking notes on his management style, he's got some interesting tactics. Like he's big on used appliances.
Used.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sees it as smart, especially with costs going crazy. He's mentioned finding good water heaters, Facebook Marketplace, way cheaper than new,
Yeah.
resourcefulness. It's all about finding those little edges that add up.
It's true, those little things make a big difference in real estate. Being smart, not just flashy.
Exactly. Speaking of smart, let's talk mentorship. Paul's always down to share what he knows. He even said a lot of his success came from one piece of advice way back when.
The food, clothing, shelter thing. It's wild how one conversation can change your whole trajectory. Like a light bulb, suddenly you see the path.
Being open to that, right? Wisdom can come from anywhere, not just some fancy seminar. Sometimes it's a random chat that makes all the difference.
And for Paul, that beach encounter, total turning point, made him rethink success, led to them selling everything and sailing off. But coming back to Alaska after New Zealand, that couldn't have been easy, right? Especially for the family.
Yeah, he was real about the challenges, his youngest daughter especially, leaving her life in New Zealand, new school, all that.
Shows you, even good changes have their adjustments.
For sure, takes flexibility, talking it out, being there for each other. That adaptability is like a golden thread in his story.
Totally. Storm at sea, running a team, even hunting down used appliances. He's always adapting. Which brings us to the bar and coffee shop. Not your average real estate investor move.
That's that entrepreneurial spirit. He's down to try new things, keeps his skills sharp. Plus, running those businesses, it gives him a feel for the local market, what people want. Could even lead to new real estate stuff.
Right. It's like this feedback loop. Real estate informs the businesses and vice versa. It's like this whole ecosystem he's built. Everything connects. And that willingness to just dive in, try something new, that seems to be his thing all throughout.
Oh, totally. And speaking of diving in, we got to talk about that sailing adventure. So much we can learn from that time on the ocean. You picture sailing, right? It's all like calm waters, beautiful
Yeah.
sunsets.
Cool escape. Freedom.
Exactly. But then Paul tells you about riding out this mega storm, 60-foot waves, and you realize
Yeah.
even the dream stuff comes with a side of crazy.
His family's playing games below deck while it's mayhem up top. That's like next level chill.
Shows you how they rolled, right? Finding normal in the middle of chaos. And Paul, the captain, he had to trust his skills, get them through it. Kind of like real estate, isn't it?
100%. You're making calls with half the info, market's a roller coaster, surprise repairs pop up. You got to stay steady at the wheel.
Right. And a good sailor knows it's not always going to be smooth. Paul talked about those times when, well, if the wind dies down, you got to use the engine. Not as exciting, but it gets you there.
He said sometimes the toughest part isn't the storm, it's those days where you're just chugging along.
Perfect for real estate. Sometimes it's just about putting in the hours, even when it's slow. That's often when the good stuff happens.
It's a long game, trusting the process. And even when it's tough, there's always a lesson, something to be grateful for.
Well said. And what struck me about Paul, he's got this really healthy view on risk. People get hung up on the what ifs, right? The worst case stuff.
You need to let that fear hold you back.
Yeah. But Paul's learned, both in business and life, those calculated risks. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
Weigh the good against the bad and then take the leap.
So wrapping up our deep dive into Paul's, well, very unique journey, what's that one takeaway, that golden nugget listeners can use right now?
This. Success isn't a straight line. It's about deciding what success means to you. Maybe it's money, maybe it's doing what you love, maybe it's time with family. It's about saying yes to the detours, the bumps in the road, the unexpected stuff. That's where the good stuff is.
Finding the good even when it's choppy seas. Having the guts to set sail on your own terms and build a life that really reflects you. And hey, you might even inspire someone along the way, just like Paul did for us today.